so messy. Messy, messy, messy. That's what I am. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? I am a little behind for the moment. So while we get through the preliminaries of starting my podcast, I'm just going to do a little housekeeping here with the web pages because I have to, start the live things, and I was doing other stuff. I'm trying to clean up the shop a little bit. It's messy. I was doing a lot of different stuff this weekend, and so it kind of had to take care of things that are not web related. Hopefully you all can, yeah, I think you can hear me. There we go. Anyway, yeah, I had a lot of other stuff to do. It was really stinking hot this weekend. I don't know if it was stinking hot where you are, but where I am, it was stinking hot. So I did not get a lot of shop time just because it gets so warm. Oh, pardon me, I got to dig the sleep out of my eye here. It gets so warm in my shop after a while that it's just, when you're sweating water on top of your wood or sweat on top of your wood, that really isn't the best thing in the world. So, hey, shh. There we go. All right. All I'm doing is I'm just lining up my windows here so that I can see comments. If you all have comments, please feel free to drop them into the chat box on the platform that you're watching. I am currently streaming and do every week on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. And each one of those has their own chat interface, so it makes it difficult for me to see them all at once. I don't have a unified chat window. I wish I did. That would be so handy. I do not, though. There are some programs for doing multicast live streaming, which is kind of, I guess that's what you would call what I'm doing here is multicast live streaming. So there are some programs that allow you to do multicast, which basically means you send your live stream into one location and then they stream it out to the different alternatives like Twitch and Facebook and YouTube and whatever. There's a couple more, but I don't know what they are. Anyway, they then accumulate the chat from all of those and put it into one chat window for you. But then again, that's a monthly fee, and since I don't really want to pay for that, I do it this way, and it works. I do all of my streaming, if you will, on OBS, and it's a program that allows you to basically live stream to one platform, and then there's a plugin that allows me to feed it to two additional ones, and so that's what I use, and it works out well. I just have to have 3 windows open for my chat so that I can see all of the little chat windows. And then if anybody happens to drop in and want to make a comment or ask a question or whatever, it gives me an opportunity to see that and respond to you in real time, or, well, in Jeff time, which isn't necessarily real time, but it's as soon as I can. And so it kind of just keeps it a little bit more interactive that way, which is what this is about. This is me sharing my daily, or not daily, but my 3 times a weekly time here in the shop and what I'm doing, and maybe pass on some stuff to you that might be helpful for what you're doing, or maybe you just like to torture yourself and watch some guy do things with wood. I don't know. If you do, thanks. That's awesome. Which brings us to where we are today. I didn't get as much done this weekend as I wanted to. Like I said, A, because it was really hot, and B, I had some other stuff to do. I had to, well, I wasn't here on Friday, so sorry if you missed me on Friday. I went down to North Carolina with my son. He needed to pick up a new car, well, new to him. And then I visited some family down there, so that was really nice. And then came back this weekend and had to get some stuff done. Like I had to get my lawn mowed yesterday. Golly, that was fun. And I did it kind of early. My wife's like, why don't you do that really late? It's like, because it's freaking hot later in the day. I did it before it hit 90 in the morning to like 11 o'clock-ish time, close to 12. And by 1 o'clock, it's 90 plus degrees, and then it stays that way until like 8 o'clock at night. So doing it in the late evening, you would think it would be better, but not necessarily because it's hotter. So yeah, and then working in my shop when it's that way is really tough. So what I was planning on doing, last time we were here, we did some finishing on bases. I had done 2 previously. I think last Monday, a week ago, I had done the white oak base, and I had done did I do a cherry? I think I did maybe a cherry base. I can't remember. Oh, no. I had done a teak oil finish on one of the Sapilis. This is Sapili. And I had done a gel finish, a gel stain on one of the white oaks. And then on Wednesday, I did a regular wood stain on cherry. And then I did trace coating on the figured maple, which was really cool. And it looks beautiful. So I did the trace coating on there. It looked really great. And then I was going to finish everything this weekend. That didn't happen. I did drop some tung oil finish on these Sapili boxes. I have 2 of them here, and they need another coat. So I did 1 coat yesterday. You have to wait about 24 hours to do 2 coats on these things. And the really important thing about teak oil is that you really you don't let it sit and get dry, because it gets super tacky and hard to wipe off. This is what I use. This is Minwax. Did I say teak oil? I'm sorry, I meant tung oil. Tung oil finish is really great stuff. It's a natural oil finish. It has varnish in it, so it gives you some protection, but it's that oil, it penetrates really well, and it just adds luster and color, but like natural color to your projects. It's a little bit on the amber side. So you get a little bit of an amber hue to your project, but it also, like I said, it adds that really nice look that oil gives to things. It really kind of makes things kind of pop, and you can see it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. It's not much, but it really makes the green look fantastic. It gives a little shimmery, a little chatoyance here. So this was one of, I'm just looking at my monitor over there, sorry. This was one of the Sapili bases, and there's another one sitting right here. And so I got 1 coat on there, and you really don't want to let that stuff sit more than about 5 minutes on the wood itself, and then wipe it off. Because if you leave it on there longer, it's a tacky, kind of a gummy kind of feel to it, especially if it's warm. I think that might have something to do with it. But anyway, you don't want to leave it on there. You need to get it wiped off. So you put it on, and then by the time you're finished putting it on all the surfaces, you go back to where you started and you start wiping it off. And then you have to let it set for about 24 hours and then follow up with the second coat. And that's pretty much it. 2 coats and you're done, but you got to wipe it off. And you wait, you don't wait too long. If you wait 20 minutes, that's too long. Trust me. It'll start getting really tacky and gummy and hard to remove. So I need to do those though. So I've got 1 coat on, need to get the other coat off. I have 2 more bases that need finishing, and one's cherry and one is white oak. They will get the white oak will get the gel, and the cherry will get the regular wood stain. And I just didn't get to those. It was so hot yesterday in my shop, and I just like, you know what? Because I'd already cut the grass in the morning and everything else, I was done. So I did these in the afternoon. I got them cleaned off, wiped down. They actually feel really great right now. I'll put another coat on this afternoon, and then these will be done, and I will try to get to the other 2 bases to get them finished either this afternoon or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. And then those will be done because I let them sit for usually about a week to let all of the stains and oils and everything else, I let them all cure really well, so that when I go to top coat them with lacquer, the lacquer has great adhesion and doesn't interfere with anything that I put on. So by letting those oils and such cure, they won't interact with the lacquer coat, and I'll just get a really beautiful, smooth finish to them. and that's the plan. So they'll be almost done. So that'll be 8 bases that I will hopefully get finished up, well, ready for lacquer and by tomorrow. So that's the plan for that. So there's really not a lot left for me to do with those, especially on camera. I'm not going to I've already done the staining of the white oak and the cherry, so I'm not going to make you watch me do that again because that's boring. So I thought today we might move forward and mill up some wood and get ready for my next batch. I don't have a lot of wood left. I'm kind of down to the bottom of my wood pile here. And so we might, ooh, I got another board. We might have some interesting choices for some stuff. I've had some requests come in for some 3/4 size bases. So this is, for those who don't know what this is, if you're just new into my shop, this is a base for an antique sewing machine. Let me get this computer out of the way. I don't need it for the moment. So I'm going to move it over. So this is a base for an antique sewing machine. Specifically for some Singer style antique sewing machines. There are a number of machine models that fit into here. Probably the most famous, most prevalent is what they would call the Model 66. Some people call it a red eye because of the decal pattern on there. Anyway, these things were manufactured from the late 1800s all the way into, I believe, the 50s. The sewing machine thing is not my thing. That's my wife's thing, not mine. She kind of got me into this, but it kind of helped me discover the market. But anyway, these bases right here are for these old machines that maybe either used to sit in a table, like a treadle table, or used to be contained in their own cases that have, over time broken and other such things. So these have two purposes. You can either use it as a functional base, like if you have a hand crank for your machine, that's a thing. Or if you, I'm getting dust and dirt on these, or you can just use it as a display. And a lot of people just like to display their machines. Did I lose that piece over there? Anyway, this is an antique sewing machine. I use this as my measuring machine out here. I think I lost a piece of the front here. This thing just fell off, and I think I lost the front plate off of there, maybe? I'll have to look and see if I can find it. Anyway, this is a parts machine kind of thing that my wife has loaned to me. But it is for, I think this was like a Model 115. That's what they call it. Anyway, it's an old machine, and patent dates on this are from the early 19th century. I think the latest patent is 1915. So that gives you an idea of the age of this. But anyway, I make the bases that fit these type machines. There is a smaller set of machines that we'll call those 3/4 size, because they're basically, you shrink this down by 1/4, and that's the size of these machines. And there's several of those size machines that look just like this. They're only a little bit smaller, and they take a different size base, and I have the measurements for those. And I thought today what we would do, since I have some people saying, hey, can you make some like 28 bases or 29 bases or whatever? That's the 3/4 base. So I thought what I would do is go ahead and start on my next batch of bases, but doing smaller, shrink this down about 3/4, and that's what we will get. So we can make them with and without this storage compartment. So this is just a little storage compartment. It's kind of a handy little thing to store stuff in, whatever. People seem to really love that. These are my best sellers, are the ones with the storage compartments. But I can also make them where they're just the base itself. So basically just take this piece of wood and nothing on the side here. That takes less wood as well. But I need to do some planning and figure out how much wood I actually need to do this. So, trying to get that coffee down before it gets cold. So I've got plans already drawn up that give me the dimensions, and I'm looking on my phone because I took a picture of it. It's hanging on my wall over there for reference, and I'm not going to share it because, well, this is my thing. I don't want anybody just making my stuff, putting me out of business. Now, if you just watch my stuff and you want to figure it out, I give all the dimensions as I'm going, but at least you have to work for it, right? I don't just give it to you. So to make something like this one right here is for the full size, just to give you an idea, is the inner compartment to hold that is 14 3/4 inches. So that's this measurement where the machine goes. On the 3/4, it's 12 1/4 inches. So my space would basically be almost, well, let's see here, 12 3/4. So yeah, about 2 inches shy. So cut this down. It's also not as wide. So width-wise on the internal, this is 7 1/8. On the 3/4 base, it's 6 11/16. So, you know, a little bit of weird measurement there, but it is what it is. So what I need, if I want to make 3/4 bases with storage compartments, I end up needing some wood that is 18 1/2 inches long. So these long pieces right here. The side pieces and this middle piece, they're all cut to the same dimension. So where these are 8 1/8 inch, yeah, these are 8 1/8. The ones for the 3/4 machine are 7 11/16. And I would need 3 of those per base if I was going to be doing a 3/4 base with a storage compartment. So that gives me 21, we'll just call it 8, 20, we'll call it 24 inches is what I would need. I would need 24 inches to get my 3 end pieces. That gives me some slop on the ends to, you know, for cutting and stuff. That's not the exact measurement. It's just a ballpark, but it puts me close to that range. So 24 inches for all the end pieces. And then I said, what did they say on these? 18 1/2. As opposed to these that are almost 21 inches. So 18 1/2 inches. It's going to give me what, 36, 37 inches of wood total, and or 2 pieces side by side, you know, 2 18 1/2 inch, actually 19 inch long pieces. We're going to say 19 because you need a little slop on the ends just to get all your cutting and everything. And then you finalize it. So I always go a little bit long. I don't cut exact length when I'm milling. And here's the other thing too, is when I'm milling, I'm usually dealing with rough lumber, or rough cut lumber. So for example, here is a piece of rough cut cherry. And this cherry is, it's got some marks and some stuff, saw marks and stuff. It's rough on this end. But this cherry is also thicker. This should be 7/8. So this was already milled at the store. They had some of these pre-milled planks. It's surfaced on 2 sides, which was fine for me. It just takes some of the thing off. This is generally 4/4. 4/4 lumber. 4/4 mean there's 1/4 inch times 4. That's the way they do rough cut lumber. So 4/4 lumber is 1 inch. And so 4/4, I would have to mill that down to 3/4 because I need 3/4 of an inch. That's how thick all of my boards are here. All of these get milled down to 3/4 of an inch. And so I start with thick wood, I mill it down. Like I said, this was already surfaced on 2 sides, which is helpful, but I don't know if I can get a full, maybe I can get a partial base out of this. Let me see if I can get a partial base. To make just the base itself, I would need 13 3/4 inches. And then I only need 2 of the sides. So 13 3/4 inches, well, this is 30. So 13, 26. So I could get off of one side here, I could get both of my side pieces for just the base, not with the storage compartment, just the base. And then, because this is wide enough, because these boards are 3 inches tall, I generally, for the 3/4 size machines, they do not have to be 3 inches. They can be a little less. I tend to just stick with the same width. It doesn't hurt to have a deeper base. It hurts to have one that's too shallow, but not too deep. So I tend to stick to the same dimensionality in terms of the height of the boxes or the bases. And this is 7 inches wide. There's a lot of rough cuts, so really 6 3/4 inches by the time you get it milled down. But that gives me enough to get 2 3-inch wide boards out of here. I only need 14 inches of length. So I could get one small base out of this piece of wood right here. And that's what I'll probably do, is just one base, no storage compartment, just one base, because I've got that extra cherry there. And I don't have enough to do, because here's the other thing. I do not have enough to do a full one with a compartment out of that, because not only is it longer, you would need more wood, you'd need an additional side piece, but you need to account for the fact that you're going to need a lid. And because I like to make the wood or the lids out of the same species and usually the same boards, you have to have a starting place. You have to have enough width and length for that lid. And I just don't, for this little piece of cherry right here, I don't. So I can make a standard, well, a 3/4 size base with no storage compartment, would just look like this. And that is perfect. Actually, let me show you. Hang on a second. I have one right here. This is basically what we're looking at. This is a standard size base, so this fits that standard machine, not the 3/4, but it's just the base itself. This one's had its 2 coats of, dusty. This one's had its 2 coats of tung oil finish on it, and it's just hanging around waiting to get finished. I do have a CNC pattern that I use to carve this Singer logo in here, which, by the way, that is no longer trademarked. That trademark expired, so I'm good to go for using that. But I put that little logo in there, put the little flourishes on the side, and so if you imagine this just shrunk down a little bit, that's what we're looking at for this piece of cherry, and it requires a lot less wood. I still need to make corners, so I have to figure out, okay, do I have enough wood to make corners? I need to put a base in there. This is just plywood, so that's no big deal. But I can certainly get that out. When you start adding this piece on here to the side, you have to start looking at your additional requirements for lumber for doing the additional side piece and for adding that lid. The lid can be a problem because usually what I end up doing is it's only about 1/4 inch thick, right? See, it's pretty thin, but it has to be wide enough and long enough to fill that gap in 3/4 inch. So it's wider than 3 inches. So I can't just cut this out of a 3-inch piece. And if I'm going to book match it, which basically means you take that piece of wood and you split it, well, it has to be wide enough to accommodate splitting it in half and still being able to finish it and get it flat. So that's a monster unto itself. But cherry, woohoo! So we're going to use this and just make one base out of that, one standard size base, and that will work well. Now, where I do have a lot of latitude here is I have, well, let me grab this one. I just saw this out of the corner of my eye. I was like, oh, I've got that too. This is kind of a cool piece of wood, which I think I will go ahead and use this to make one. This is sycamore. And I think this is quarter sawn. And there's a way to find out. Let me look at the end. So yeah, this is quarter sawn sycamore, which has some really cool patterns in there. Let me turn this camera on, see if I can show this to you. I don't think this camera was turned on. Are you on? There we go. All right. So let me show you this. This has some really cool, look at it, there's some really cool grain going on inside here. It's almost like leopard wood. It has just some really, there you go, you can see it right there. Some really cool stuff right up and through here. And I'm thinking this would look really cool as a base or bases. Now, the problem I have let me look at this really quickly, is the width of this is only 5.5 inches. And that's why this was not used for a regular base, for one of my standard bases, because in order to get, I like to get my wood at like 7 inches wide so that I can get 2 3-inch strips out of it, right? Not really practical for a 5-inch board or 5.5 inch, but like I said, I'm not married to that 3-inch mark when it comes to a 3/4 size machine. Those machines were only a couple of inches deep, like maybe 2¼ inches deep or so. They're not very deep. They are not, they don't need that clearance on the bottom of the machine to function, to operate, to whatever. So I can make thinner bases, and so I can actually use this and make some thinner bases. This thing is very long. It is 64 inches in length. Now, what I want to do is figure out, okay, if I want to make a full-size base with a lid and a side compartment and a lid, I'm going to need to leave some of this wood intact. I'm not going to cut it all the way down. I'm going to cut a piece of it off to use as lids because, like I said, you don't want to go and grab a piece of wood and then not be able to make a lid out of it. You'll be like looking for scraps, and that looks not good. And did I just say that looks not good? Wow, it's Monday. I'm going to give myself a break. Anyway, so I've got this piece of 3/4 sycamore quarter sawn, cool looking wood. I've done, I did a couple of different bases with this stuff, and I was really happy with the way it turned out. And I actually did the first 301 prototype base that I made was out of this wood, and it looked beautiful. So I think this is going to get probably the same finish that the Sapele got, which would be like a tung oil finish, or maybe a Danish oil. It looks really good. You don't want to cover up. You don't want to dark stain this stuff. At least I don't like to dark stain it. When it has a really unique grain characteristic, I just want to enhance it. I don't want to cover it up. So probably a natural finish for this one. And then finally. All right, that was really cold. So finally, sitting back here, if you saw this big giant thing, oh, whew, man, this shirt looks so huge on me now, which I guess is a byproduct of losing weight. I've lost a lot of weight. So anyway, I'm not going to complain that my shirt looks big. This is a giant, oh, it smells so good. This is a giant piece of walnut. It's huge, right? So this thing is over 9 inches in width and is probably, I don't know how tall it is. Let's see how long this thing is. It's pretty long. This was an expensive board. Just saying. So this is 82 inches by 4/4. So 82 inches by 4/4 by, what I say, 9 inches? A little over 9? We'll just call it 9 for giggles. It's 9 1/4. So if you're interested in what that would cost, if you were going to buy that piece of rough cut lumber, now this is rough cut lumber. If you bought this at a wood shop or at a big box store where it was already finished, it would be ridiculously expensive. I have an app here that is a footboard calculator. So we said that was, what did I say? 80. Wow, a mind is a terrible thing to lose. 82? Yeah, 82. Get out of there. All right, so 82 inches in length. So I'm going to go to the inches section here and type in 82. And the width was 9. And it's 4/4. And our price on walnut is probably right now about $12 a board foot. I've seen it less, I've seen it more, but it's usually right around $12. So that board right there would cost $61 for that one board, 61 bucks. So if you're thinking, wow, wood's not that expensive, well, that's $60 basically for a piece of wood. Now, this is a really, when I picked this out, it has some great, like it had some knots in there and stuff. It's got some great character to it, and it's going to turn out really well. But just looking at that, that's a lot of wood right there. Now, if you look at the size of that, how much can I get out of that? I don't know. I mean, I probably can't get 3 strips of I can't get 3 strips of 3 inches, because at 9 1/4 inch, if you figure I've got to clean up one edge. Okay, so I need one flat edge. I'm going to lose a little thickness off of that. I need one clean edge to run it through my saw, and it has to run against the fence, and you want that to be nice and straight. So you got to clean that edge up on the joiner. And then I'm going to lose almost 1/4 inch to kerf, because I would make 2 cuts. My blade is 1/8 inch thick. You double that up, that's 1/4 inch. So I would lose 1/4 inch off of that, plus what I need to clean the edges up. So probably I can get 3 boards that are about 2 7/8 inches in height, which is fine. That works out just fine. The other thing is that I would need to leave a section of the end that I could use for making lids, because I would want to make full-size bases with storage compartments for that. I think that would look really well. Or my words not so working good today. That would look really fine if I did a couple of ones with the storage compartments. And so this is the kooky process I go through, is trying to figure out, okay, what can I make with the wood that I have? I don't just say, oh, I'm going to make 3 of these. It's like, no, my boards dictate what I'm going to, unless I have if I have 5 or 6 pieces of cherry, let's say, well, yeah, I might just say, well, I need, I'm going to make 5 or 6 of these type bases, because I'll have plenty of wood to keep feeding those bases. But when I have a limited quantity of wood, I have to figure out what's my best fit for what I can squeeze out of there. I don't like having a lot of leftovers. But anyway, so let's start milling some wood, because I think we can really do some good stuff. Now, like I said, if I'm gonna make 3/4 size bases, I'm feeling bad, like I should make a full size too. And the reason I say that is these are premium, and they demand a premium price. So I think right now, see, I don't even know what I'm charging for these right now. Right now, the 3/4 size bases are selling at, I think that just the standard wood 3/4 size base with a logo on the front and a side compartment are $125. That's what I'm going to say. I add $10 for premium wood. So these at a full size, and here's the thing, I don't knock anything off. If it's a 3/4 base, it costs as much as a full size, because that extra inch of wood isn't where all the money is being spent. It's still in the same process. So the money that I spend on that, I don't differentiate in size. I differentiate in what the item has. So if it has a logo, that's an additional price. If it has a storage compartment, that's a much larger price. So if it's just a plain base with no logo and no storage, that's the lowest of my price point, and that's like 90 bucks. For regular wood, you start adding premium wood like sapele, or good Lord, like that, like the walnut, and ching ching, prices go up. So I think what I'm going to do is figure out Okay, out of 82 inches, well, let's not do 82 inches because I need to leave some, I'm going to leave some stock wood. Wow, I'd really love to just plane this down before I do anything. And that gives me the chance to, um, yeah, this doesn't have a clean side to it. So there's a lot of saw marks in here. The board should be pretty straight. It's just been laying flat on my garage floor for like months. So it shouldn't be too bad. If I take lids out, it would be out of this section right here. This would be the most interesting grain right here. And I think that's where I would pull them out of. It's got a little bit of, I won't call it sapwood, but it's a little bit lighter here, but there's so much wood. There's water looking type stuff and everything. So it's hard to see the wood grain on here until you actually just clean it through a planer or a jointer or whatever. This is too wide for my jointer, which is why I generally have to cut these down before I send them through the jointer. So I think what I'm going to do is calculate I said I need, sorry, this is my process. I know it's stupid, but it is what it is. So I need, I'm going to look at my picture again to see what the overall length is. So 18.5 inches, right? And so we just said basically 19 inches, so 38 inches in length. And if that's 82, so I'm just going to do a little calculation here. Let's see, what did I say? 38. And if I try to get full length out of there, I don't think that's going to work out well, because that makes 76 inches, which doesn't give me a lot at the end. If this is 82, that only gives me, well, that gives me 6 inches at the end if I want to cut that off for a cover, but I want to get more than one cover out of there. So what if, what did I say? The length on those was 20, what did I say? 22, let's go back here. 6 and 11, or no, 7 and 11/16. So basically 8, so 24 inches. So let's do it this way then. Where's my calculator? 24 plus 38 is 62. So at 62 inches, I can get an entire 3/4 size base out of that. And that is not a bad deal. So 62 inches, let me figure this out here. I'm just going to get my magic marker because it's easier to see. At 62 inches, let's put this in here. Boop. So that's right here. All right. So right here at this line is 62 inches. And if I subdivide this or whatever, like here and here, so I'll have 1, 2, 3 lengths of boards. That gives me 3 complete bases out of that bottom section there, which is not bad. So 1, 2, 3. Which I said, what, 130, 135? I can't remember what I said. But, you know, you look at that, that's $300, almost $400 in bases out of that $62. The top part, I would reserve that for making the lids. And then I can use whatever wood I needed to out of that to do decorative projects or whatever. I mean, it's always good to have some wood laying around there. But yeah, the only thing I could do if I wanted to, I could put this on a sled and run it through my planer. Otherwise, I need to cut these boards down thin. So I think what I'm going to do, let me get these bases out of the way, because obviously we don't need these right now. They're going to be finished later. I've been talking about these for a while. Let's go ahead and start working on them. So I'm going to get this set out of the way. Hopefully that's out of the way. And we are going to, I need to cut off, get this out of the way. I need to cut off this end section first. So this section at the top right here, this needs to go, and then just leave this board right here. Then what I will do is joint one edge and then run it through my, my saw and rip it down into thinner boards so that I can then joint those and joint one flat edge and then do the planer. Yeah. All right. So I'm thinking as I'm going here, I don't normally do this. So the easiest way to do this, let me get this out of the way. Easiest way to do this is to bring it over here and use my circular saw to basically just cut this section off here. So I'm going to check my math again. I need 3. So I'm going to go up higher than that. I'm just going to go to 65 inches on this. Cut this off at 65. That gives me plenty of wiggle room to work with. So I'm just going to get over here. I'm going to grab a square off the wall back here. This isn't like completely straight, but it'll be straight enough. So I'm just going to draw a line on here that is going to allow me to cut this down. There we go. And all of this drawing stuff goes away when I start planing these things up. Anyway, the other boards here are not bad. This board is under 6 inches, so I can run this down the jointer, not a problem. This one right here, I'm just going to split this down the middle and get the wood that I need out of that. So that's pretty easy. Wow, I was thinking of doing some, I got a lot more wood than I thought I did when I found these things. These are kind of exotics here. I also have, I just thought of this. I also have this stuff, which is quarter sawn red oak, which has some really cool looking grain on there. I might throw a quarter sawn red oak in here too, just for giggles. Just for gigglies. All right. But for right now, let's go ahead and start. This stuff's already cut down pretty well, so I'm going to go ahead and figure this out. So I'm going to grab my saw here. This is just a little rigid circular saw. It's not a full-blown size one. It's kind of a downsized one. It uses a 6.5 inch blade or something like that. So a slightly smaller blade. I think the larger one has like a 7.25 inch blade. But I don't normally do a lot of work with a circular saw, and so this one pretty much covers my bases. Yeah, 6.5 inch blade. The one thing I will do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to clamp this portion down to my workbench because I don't want things springing up or falling down or anything like that. I don't want pinching to occur. So I'm just going to take this, and so that is held really firm. I could do the same on this side, and I probably should if I can get a clamp in here. If I can get a clamp in here. Let's see. Ah, stop it. There we go. So this doesn't move. I'm just going to run this right through that mark right there. It's not an exact measurement. Like I said, it just kind of gives me a separation of those end pieces so that I can keep this big piece for the decorative lids and stuff. And that's all I'm looking for. All right. This is loud. I'm going to put my ears on. Let's cut this down. Well, let me check my, yeah, see, I need to go a little deeper here. So I've almost forgotten how to do this. Oh, not like that. Not like that. Would be fine. Is that too far? That's too far. There we go. That's good. Okay, got my depth set. And we're just going to go ahead and make the cuts here. This makes so much mess. But I gotta tell you, this little saw, man, it just powers through. It's a little rigid. Rigid brand, Home Depot. I think that's their house brand. It's really good. So if you need a little saw, a little circular saw, you're not going to be doing a ton of stuff, but you want something to power through some woods, some 2x4s and things like that. I can't recommend this little thing enough. A nice thing, it has a nice solid aluminum bed right here. This is slide on, really nice straight flat edge, really accurate cutting guide there. You can do tilt cuts with it. It's got pretty good depth. So yeah, this thing it's served me well. Like I said, I don't use a circular saw a lot, but there are times when it is definitely just the best tool. And like I could have put this over on my table saw, but that ain't gonna work. And I don't want to have to open my garage door and run over there on my other saw when I could just pull this thing out and boom, there's our extra piece. And just kind of knock the stuff off of it. So I've got this piece now that I can set aside, and I will use this for, I will probably end up making some smaller pieces out of this and then book matching them. There's some really pretty grain in here, and that stuff is going to look really nice. So I'm going to set this aside for the moment. But now we have a length here that we can use for cutting into a couple of strips. Okay, I'm unplugged. That I can cut these into some strips that are usable now for the jointer. That's the problem with having a jointer that is only 6 inches wide, which I hate, but it is what it is. I would love to have a wider jointer that would make things. So if I had a jointer that was, if I had an 8-inch wide jointer, I mean, I could just trim off an edge and then just, or if I had a 12-inch jointer, good Lord, there would be no stopping me. But I don't. So is what it is. Whew, that threw a lot of dust. I'm just going to tell you, that thing threw dust everywhere. I got to clean up for a second. Give me just a second here, because it threw a lot of dust here. That is the big problem with a circular saw is, I mean, it just, there's no dust collection on one of those things. It just throws it where it needs to, and to heck with everything else. Undo this, keep this from sliding off. But now we've got a much more manageable sized board over here that I can use. And like I said, I can joint one edge, because I will need to, and then run it through the table saw. One day I'll learn how to talk. That'd be helpful. But anyway, I will run it through the table saw and make 2 thinner pieces that will make life easier for running through the planer. I am just cleaning up my stuff here because it really needs to be cleaned up so I can run these things through the table saw. I'm just trying to clear some space here because this is a very long board. And by the time I push this through here, it's going to knock a lot of stuff down. And I've got a lot of stuff kind of like sitting out here from when I was finishing that needs to be put away. But like I said, not really ready for the show this morning. All right, let's go over here and let me see what needs to be cleaned up over here. I got some towels and some gloves. I'm going to put all this stuff aside. Actually, we'll use these in a little bit to do my tongue oil finish, but I've got a chisel, which I'll need. This I will need. Paper towels, not so much. Put those over here. All right, what else do we need to do? I need to move this out of the way. This is my crosscut sled, and I'm not going to be cross-cutting. I also have these two pieces right here, which will need to be finished. I'm going to move these out of the way. Just so much stuff to do. It's a problem with a small shop. You have to really kind of move things around and utilize the space you have, and that means sharing workspaces. And sometimes, you know, sometimes a table saw is a work table and such stuff like that. So it just is what it is. All right, let me get rid of this. This actually lives underneath the back of my saw. So that's pretty easy to get that out of the way. Push this under here. Okay, that's out of the way. Really what I want to do is clear off the table saw here so you can see I'm just clearing off space here. And when we get ready to run these down, we'll be in good shape. I need to also get the jointer pulled out a little bit here because we will need to run that board through on an edge. And I don't think it's going to be in good shape for that yet. I needed to get a little more space in the back. All right, the other thing I need to do is I need to clean out my dust chute in here. So I'm going to go down here and clean the dust chute out real quick. All right, that is cleaned up. And really what I'm going to look to do is just clean one edge of this walnut board up. So I'm going to set this over here for a moment. So I'm going to clean up one edge of this walnut board. I want to figure out which side is going to be my side. I think this side right here, there's some chips and stuff over here. So I think what I want to do is clean up this edge right here. And it's pretty flat already, so not too bad. I just need, it doesn't have to be square to a face or anything. It just needs to be flat along its length so that it gives me a reference surface to run on the saw over here. It has to have a reference to run along this right there. So when I have that fence moved over, it will track along the fence line and give me one nice edge, one nice cut to work with. All right. Let's see if I've got enough room here for this. If I started over here, will I have enough room to get in the table? Because that's my big, I think so. Once again, we're looking at a space issue, but I do have space. This will run all the way through. We're good to go. All right, I'm gonna get my ears on here and I'm gonna switch cameras for you. I think I have one set up for the jointer. I do right there. So let me go ahead and get my ears on and we will go ahead and clean up one edge of this particular board with the jointer. And getting closer. Just to kind of clue you in, so I'm going to show you a little bit closer here. You can see I'm getting really good. I've still got some rough places here. So right along through here, there's some roughness. Right up through here, it's making contact on this edge. So I'm getting closer. Right up in here, it's all the way through. Down here, it's still really rough. So this section much lower. But anyway, it takes several passes to even get things started. And then once you start where you're almost flat, at least on part of the wood, it goes much quicker. So we should not need too many more passes to get this one done. Okay. All right, that's going to satisfy my needs. It's not perfect, but what it is the blade makes contact all the way along the length. And what that means is I now have a flat surface, maybe not all the way across the width of the board, but at least I have a flat surface that runs the length of the board. And that means I have something that can reference against the fence of my saw and give me a nice clean cut. Now, what I need to do here, I'm going to switch cameras here just for a minute. I don't know what this one's looking at. That one's looking over there, so that's not a good one. Let me go change this camera angle real quick. I wasn't sure what I was doing today, so sometimes I set these camera angles and they're a little off. All right, I think this one's gonna go over here on the table saw like that. Would be good. What do you think? That look good? Sure, why not? Looks good to me. All right, so what I need to do now is figure out, okay, this thing is pretty long. It's 60 some inches long. If I push this all the way through the saw, how far along my workbench is this thing going to slide where I need to clear space so that it doesn't knock things off left and right? I'd rather have this cleaned off to start with. So I'm going to have to clean off portions of my workbench here to allow for this board to push through. So really what I need to do is figure out if I push it all the way to here, how far is this thing going to go? And it's to about right there. So I need to clean up some of this mess. Just is what it is. So these clamps that are on here, I need to move those. Just somewhere else on the table here is fine. Do it right here. These things live over here. Once again, just kind of like, you know, I've got quite a utilitarian little shop here. I just do a lot of different things and utilize my space as best I can. And that means a lot of times it just means, you know what, shifting and rearranging and moving things around because you just need the space for something else. So it just takes a minute, you know, doesn't take too long. Although I do apologize that you have to sit here and watch me do this. But hey, you know, that's what my live stream is all about. It's the realities of working in a shop, not the illusion of working in a shop that you usually get from a YouTube video where they're like, oh, let's make this thing. And then, you know, 30 minutes later, this entire table is finished and done. And, you know, that's not the way it really works. You know, it takes a long time to do stuff sometimes. And you know what? You just, on this live stream, we don't cut corners. We just plow through and do the work. And that is not a dig at anybody because I respect the hell out of all of these creators who come out here and make content. I'm just saying, if you're watching a live stream, don't expect it to like have my project finished in one little session because that is not how it works. And usually if you haven't ever made content, that's not how it works for most of the content creators. It'll take them days sometimes to make a 15 to 20 minute video. I know, I've made them. And it can take a lot of time at times. So yeah, when you see somebody who has a really nice project on building something, it's because they spent a lot of time and effort putting that whole thing together for your 15 minutes of viewing pleasure. All right, I think that is going to get enough crap out of the way. Pardon my French, but that's kind of how you feel when you're doing this kind of stuff. Let me see here. That is clean and ready to roll. All right, first thing I'm going to do, I think the first order of business is to clean up this edge over here. So I'm going to clean this edge off of this side. I'm going to raise my blade up until it's thick enough to handle this right there. Now, I need to measure this board and see how wide this thing is in its widest or in its narrowest spot because I want to clean that off. And so I'm going to just go, I've got a little bit over 9 1/4, more than 9 1/4. I can get away with 9 1/4 on here. Now I have some rough spots here too, so we'll see how that goes. Well over 9 1/4. So I think 9 1/4 is my narrowest portion of the board, and that is what we will shoot for here. So I'm going to take this and set this at 9 1/4 inches, and that will clean up the smallest portion. I'm going to set this over here for a moment and just measure this out. Let's see here if let's come in just a hair here. Could be 9 1/4. Yeah, a little bit wider than that. That should work. Okay. I'm going to push this thing through at 9 1/4 inches. I'm using this side right here that we just jointed. So this is my reference against the fence. Now it's not going to be perfect on here because this board has not been planed. So I do not have a perfectly flat surface. In fact, there are giant sawmill teeth marks all over this thing. But I mean, it's fairly flat. I mean, if you look down the length of this thing, it's not like warped or anything because it's been laying flat on my floor, on a concrete floor for months now. So it's flat enough that I can get, with relative certainty, I can get a nice cut out of that. So I'm going to take my dust collection, put it in place over here. Kind of just what you have to do. Put the dust collection in. I got to get my power and hook that up to the saw. And once I get that hooked in, we will be ready to cut this down. All right. Let's do one pass here. All right, so you can see, I mean, thickness wise, we didn't lose a lot of wood there. I did lose, you know, 1/8 of an inch in the places because that's the thickness of the kerf. But we now have a really nice edge here. If you look, this edge is now, should be parallel to this edge. And that now gives me the ability to cut a strip off of here. Let's see, now my total width now is 9 1/4. So if I make 2 cuts on here at 3 inches, that should give me, with the 1/8 of an inch for the kerf, that should still give me almost exactly 3 inches of width there. So if I take 9 1/4, let's see, 3 inches. Let me do some measurement here because I like to get this right off the bat. I'm going to set this over here on the workbench for real quick and grab my stuff here. Let's come over to this side right here. So if I'm going to take 3 inches off this side, right, I'm going to get a pencil here and just mark my 3 inches because I want to see how much that leaves me. I wish I could find my better pencil. This thing's a piece of crap. Carpenter pencil. All right. So this is going to be cut to 7. So I want, all right. Time is 12:08. Is my son gone for work? I think he is. He is gone to work. Okay, I'm gonna go get a better pencil. So give me just give me a couple minutes here. We're right back. All right, so chill. Okay, sorry about that, but I really needed a better pencil in order to do this correctly. So if I'm going to do 3 inches off of here, I needed something that was more accurate in that. Oh, and doing this rough wood is really tough because you've got all the wood grain that wants to interfere with the pencil, but that's pretty good, which means I need to set my saw width for, really? Okay, so 6 and I'm going to say 3/16. So I'm going to set my width to 6 3/16 on here. I'm going to move this for a second. By the way, I have covered my laptop in dust. That's not good. I think I'm going to blow this thing off when I get done. I'm going to set this over on my chair over here. Okay. So 6 3/16 is what I said I need. Let's set this over on the side over here for a minute. 6 and 1 2 3/16. Now that does present me with an issue here because I don't think that's right. I think I need to, that's not going to give me the mark I need. So this is why you have to think this through. I can say, oh, 6 3/16, and that's great. But what that gives me is the correct measurement inside, but that's going to subtract 1/8 of an inch off of my stuff there. I need to make that, I need to take 1/8 of an inch off of that. So basically I need to make it 6 1/16 because I have to allow for the kerf of the blade. So basically, if I take this board right here, and I'm just going to measure from here, I'm going to measure 3 inches really quickly and put a mark on here so that I can see where this interacts with the saw blade, but it should be pretty much perfect here. I think that's right there. That should be perfect right there. So let me bring this down here now and see if that's going to give me my 3 inches. That's why I said you have to really be, it's not just like, oh, it's just this much and you just cut it. When you're sectioning boards like this, it requires a lot more thought. That's perfect right there. Because if I didn't do that 1/8 of an inch for the kerf, I would have made this 2 7/8 instead of 3 inches. But little thought in the process and everything's good. Let me get this tape out of the way right here. Get this stuff out of the way because we are going to be pushing a piece of wood down through here. And I don't want to knock anything off. All right, I believe we are good to go. We can make this second run here. Locked in. Just double checking now. Got my 3 inch mark on there. That is perfect. Okay. Got my push sticky here, so we're good. Let's go ahead and fire up. I slowed way down because I was coming close to knocking one of my cameras over down there. It extended a little further than I was thinking it would. All right. Now, the thing is, because this is not going to be a full-size standard base, it's going to be a 3/4 size base, I am okay with having these to be exactly 3 inches, and then they will get flattened down. They'll be a little thinner than that because by the time I actually square them up and everything else, that happens. Don't worry about it, because I've got a little extra room to play with. Now, I can take this down to 3 inches, and it should evenly divide these two. So if I take this to 3 inches, that should give me a 3 inch piece on each side of this board. And the way we can do that is I can come back here and allowing for the kerf. So if I come over to this edge, I'm going to say, okay, hey, give me 3 inches. Where's my 3 inch mark right here? So I'm going to just make my 3 inch mark on here just so I can see. And now I might have to trim one edge down, but that's okay. That is okay. I'm just going to mark this along the front here so I can see it. There we go. All right, so there's 3/4 of an inch on there. I'm going to move this camera a little bit because that made me really nervous. And then I'll reposition this camera as need be, but as of right now, this thing was just getting ready to be knocked off, and that made me really nervous. All right, I think I can do without these things. Okay, we should be good to go now. And yeah, let's give this a try. Let's give it a shot here. I just want to look at that and see that I'm getting that 3 inches on the end here. I mean, I could leave this board the thickness that it is, but and see, it's actually a little under. Just a little under 3 inches. Let me grab my ruler here and see if this is set up for exactly 3 inches here. It may not be. So it's actually off just a little bit. The right blade. You know, give me 3 that are close to 3 inches, maybe not exactly 3 inches. Like I said, that's not super important right now because I have room, but that's pretty close. This one's gonna be a little less than 3 inches, but that's okay. I am A-okay with that. It'll be very close. All right, let's do this last one here. I love the smell of walnut being cut or milled or whatever. It's a very different smell than any other wood species, and I just really enjoy it. Call me weird. You know, the thing about walnut is, like, you can't use walnut shavings you should not use them for like putting them down for an animal bed or anything because it can kill them. Like, it can actually kill a horse if you use walnut shavings in their stall. Something about the oils and stuff that gets absorbed in through their hooves and is poisonous to them. So you can use other wood chips or other wood shavings, but not walnut. Walnut, not good for horses. Anyway, here's 3 pieces now. And you can see those are pretty nicely chopped up, fairly even, look pretty good. We could definitely take these over to the jointer now and start jointing these down to get 2 flat sides. So right now we have very rough wood on each side, right? In order to make this a dimensioned piece of lumber, I need to joint 1 flat side, and then I will square up this edge to that flat side, basically by putting that new flattened side against the arm of the jointer, or against the guide, and then that will flatten this bottom edge. So that gives me 2 square sides. Then I can bring it back to the table saw, trim it down again. That would give me 3 square sides. And then, well, 2 square sides basically. And then put it through the planer, and that would give me very dimensioned, flat, squared up lumber. That's what we're looking at doing. So I'm going to take this stuff out of the way. Now, do I need to cut anything else? I don't think so. Well, I say that. I think this board right here is probably too wide to go through the jointer. Let me check this out. Yeah, so this is too wide. I'm going to go ahead and this edge has been jointed, but this has a lot of chip out right here. I'm going to joint this edge really quickly and make it flat so that I can work from this edge over. I think that'll look better. So give me just a second at the jointer. That would be camera dos. And we're going to joint this one down here. Okay, so I now have one clean side. So I've got one clean edge that I want to use. This one, like I said, there's some chip outs and stuff on this part of the wood. So I'd rather use this edge as my reference. This is already set up to 3 inches. Let me move these boards out of the way quickly here. And I think we should still be set up at 3 inches over here. And we are. So I'm going to go ahead and rip this through to 3 inches. And then we'll bring this cutoff out and put it through the same pass, the same width to get 3 inches as well. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so there's one nice 3-inch board. I have some extra wood here. Now here's where I've got a little issue. I've got some checking going on right here, which is basically where the board is split right here. Depending on how I'm going to use this, if these are going to be my sides, what did I say? This is just going to be a simple one, right? So I only need 14-ish inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and run it through with this edge against the fence and then not worry about that. This will just be waste wood down here. So, but you have to look at those things when you're running stuff through because you don't want to waste too much wood, right? So, all right, I'm going to lower my saw too because this piece definitely not as thick as the other. And it's going to hit that. It is going to hit that. All right. There we go. Nope. Probably should have grabbed another push tool for that. This one wasn't going to work because just the distance and stuff, but my bad. Don't do as I do, please. Please don't do as I do. That will never work out well. All right. I've got these two pieces right here. I've got all of these walnut pieces. I have other stuff that I can work on over here too. Remember, I've got this big board right here that I've got this sycamore right here, right? Now this actually has a jointed edge already. So I've got one jointed edge on here. Now my thought on this, because it's not over 6 inches, it needs to be cut down. So I've got 5.25 inches. So if I said 2.5 plus 1/8 for my thickness here, right? So I'm going to run this at 2.5 inches. I think that would give me, I'll run this at 2.5. I think that'll give me 2 boards in here, 2 usable boards. This will be a little thinner, but that's okay. A little thinner is all right. Because like I said, this is not a, am I going to make a, So here's a question. Do I want to make a base with am I going to use a regular base on here, or am I going to make a base with a storage compartment? If I'm going to make a base with a storage compartment, I might need to save one of these boards. Although this is really thick, I could do a book match. I can do a book match on this one. All right, I'm going to run this through, and it'll be kind of fun. We'll work on that later. I'll show you. My storage compartment is not as big as the other one, but I remember I need that length and I need that width. But if I book match, basically what I can do is take that piece of wood, split it down the middle, and then it's basically double the width. So if I have a 2.5 inch piece on here, it would basically give me 5 inches almost of width when I glued them together. That's how book matching works, because I'll split them on the bandsaw. So I think that's what I'll do on this one. So I'm going to split this down here, and we're just going to run this all the way through. Let me set this up though, because now I can use it this way. It's a little bit safer. All right, nice edge here. Let's get this going. Oh, hang on. I do need to raise this blade up a little bit because it was set for that cherry, which is thinner. This is a little thicker. There we go. Was getting a little burning on this one just because I kept having to pause the saw. The funny thing about the burning is it always happens on the outboard side. If you look at the inboard side, let me get this out of here. If you look at the inboard side, there's no burning on this at all. Nothing on the length here, right? It's just on this side where you get all the burning. So it's kind of weird that way. Anyway, we're going to set this over here with the Hey, I've Been Cut boards. This one, I don't know. Let me check the width on this one. I think this one might need a little trim. Yep. So I need to run this one through the saw just to get it to the same width as the one we just did. There's a little bit of excess here that needs to be trimmed off. I'm going to set up my my gripper here though, so that I have support like this. So when I run it through, it's not tipping or anything. Like I said, the gripper is one of my favorite tools or helpers for the table saw. It's just hard to imagine working without that thing. All right, let's do this one. It's the only problem when it doesn't actually cut through a piece of wood, when it's cutting on the edge, all that crap just flies off. I've got major dustage. Major. But we now have two very nice pieces. Now these are 2.5 inches, which is fine. These all need to get milled down thinner. So I now have one that's probably several boards there. I don't know if this is going to be 2 bases. I think this is enough for 2 bases here. So 1 regular base, 1, 2 full-size bases, and then 1, 2, 3 more full-size bases, because these are almost the same length as the walnut. So that's five bases with compartments. Let's put it that way, not full-size. There are 5 bases with compartments and 1 base without a compartment. So that's 6 bases right there. Do I want to do more bases? Good question. Let's see what I've got in length on this piece of... I've got a lot of this stuff. So this is oak, quarter sawn red oak. It's very pretty. Has a lot of medullary rays going through here. So it has some really cool patterns, but it's also a very porous wood. Very distinct pattern. You can see these lines running through here. Very distinctive and very interesting. If I do a standard base, which I would need how much in length? What do we say? I need 13 3/4 inches, so 26, 27, 28. We'll just say, 13, we'll call it 14, 28 inches in length total, right? So I need 28 inches, which would be right here. Don't, of course, have my pencil with me. Oh, come here, pencil. So if I do 28 inches like that, and then if I want, so that'd be another 24 inches in length for the, see, I don't have enough to do it that way. Doggone. I've got another one I could do. If I just did a regular base, okay, let's try a regular base. Let's do 13 3/4 is 20, well, so 14, 28 inches. Oh, okay. Yeah, I did that right. 28 inches plus I would need 14 inches. So that's fine. I can get a regular full-size base out of here because that puts me right about here. All right, we can do one regular size base on here. That'd be kind of cool. I'm going to do it at 3 inches, maybe just a hair over because I've got the material here. And yep, that should be cool. This has already been flattened on this side and this side. So all I'm going to do is run this through just like this, and that will clean up. And you can notice I've got a lot of chippy, crappy wood right here. That gets rid of a lot of that stuff. So, you know, it needed to go. It needed to go. All right, now this just doesn't fit. Ugh, drives me crazy. Let me get a proper push stick so that I don't get a bunch of people giving me crap in the comments and stuff, because, you know, they'd be right. They would not be wrong. I should be using a proper push stick when I push that through and not my hand. You should always keep your hand away from the blade. So there's a little goofy, you know, is what it is, but it works. So I will use this. My thickness is a little low. There we go. All right, let's cut this one up. All right. That is a nice board right there. Very thick too. This stuff is super thick. This may be 5/4. Yeah, this is 5/4 wood, which is kind of a pain in the ass, which is why I don't use this a lot, because that means I have to end up milling off a 1/2 inch of wood off of this thing. That's a lot of wood to mill off. I mean, I'm just telling you now, it's a 1/2 inch of removal is a lot. So, what time is it? 12:30. We're good. We can do some jointing. That'd be fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 bases. Do we want to stop at 7? Do we want to do 8? Because I'm already set up for this cut, and I've got another board that's exactly the same length. You want to do 8? Should we do 8? We could do 8. This one's, like I said, set up the exact same way. So let's do one more, just for giggles, because you know what? I'm already set up. Cutting it really doesn't take that much more time, but it adds a lot of profitability to my process here, because that's another, like, you know, $90 for taking this extra couple of minutes here. See what I mean? All right. So, you know, those few extra seconds I take to make that extra cut on this board is worth a lot more in terms of cash. So that's why I like to, you know, double and triple and quadruple and whatever up on these boards that I can, because I need to, the more I can make at one time, the better my profitability is, the more product I have available too. That's the other thing too. If I just doing these one at a time, you know, there's a lot of people who want these things. They have to wait a really long time to get one. So I try to make them available too. It's not just about how much money I make, but it's also about, you know, people being able to buy them and not having to look elsewhere. Because I don't want them to look elsewhere. I want them to look at me and say, hey, this dude's got them. Let's buy from him. All right. Okay. Just kind of had to do a little of that cleanup stuff because whew, table saw was throwing out some stuff, because it's not the full cuts through a wide piece. It's the parts where I'm cutting those edges off where it just throws stuff everywhere and there's really nothing you can do about it. All right, let's line these suckers up here and start jointing them. So I'm going to just kind of put all these boards over here, get them lined up, and then we can start running them through the jointer. I don't need this anymore over here, but I can start running these through the jointer and getting them in shape. So the other thing I like to do is like I'll take pictures of what I'm doing, or like I'll take a picture of all these boards right here or whatever and say, hey, you know, I'm now currently working on some 3/4 bases for all of you folks who've wanted them. And that kind of lets them know they're on the way, and, you know, kind of feeds their need for bases, which, you know, like, oh, I've been looking one forever and now I have hope of getting one. So I just kind of throw that out there for them so they have that information handy, so they know that, you know, maybe not right now, but down the road there will be some 3/4 bases. All right, let's do some jointing. I need a flat face. I'm going to try to figure out what my flattest face is on here. You want to make sure when you're jointing, if you've got boards that are, I'm going to use this piece right here just to show you. So if you've got a flat piece of wood, semi-flat, and you're going to joint the one side of it, right? You don't want it to be, if it's rounded like this, you don't want that round edge going across the jointer. You want to have basically the frowny face. You want those edges down because they will get knocked off and then flatten. If you have it this way, it can have a tendency to rock on that jointer. So you always want to make sure that if you have any sort of a cup or whatever, that you're putting those parts down. So the smiley face should be a frown face when you're running across the jointer. I don't know how else to say that, but anyway, it gives you a better flatter cut. So this one, I'm gonna put this face down. Now the other thing is grain direction, but it's kind of meandering through here. So it's not a consistent grain direction on this particular board. So I'm just gonna send it through and we'll see. I'm also taking light cuts to kind of minimize any tear out that I would get. You know what else I should do is switch my camera angle over so you could see me on the jointer. How about that? Boom, there you go. Over at the jointer, nobody in the chat today. Nobody's chatting today. Very quiet. That's okay, because I'm just running tools and having fun. All right, time to joint. Bye-bye. Here. Good. Good. right. So that is nice and smooth all the way down. A couple little spots where I paused, but that's not a big deal. But it's nice and flat. And that's the thing, is you want this edge super flat along through here. Then what we will do is we will run this board with this edge against the fence, and then we will true up and square up one of these edges. Now, what I like to do is, let me grab a pin. It's easier to see with a pin. Is I like to make a mark on here so that I can see that I have cleaned off and squared this edge. So all I'm going to do is run this down here and squiggle a line down here, because as the jointer removes that pin mark, I know that that edge is now square to the face. So you can see there's the mark that I made all the way down. I will keep this edge next to the fence. We'll run that squiggle mark across the jointer blade and get a true 90-degree square corner on this thing. And that's what we're after, is getting a square corner. Took a little while to get cleaned off there. And there's just a teeny tiny bit left over here, but I'm not concerned about that. But what this does now is it gives me a very square, true corner over here. Let me grab my grab my square here. So what we're looking at is we want to make sure that as we run this down, that we get a very square corner, which is, as I look down that's very square. If I take it this way, it's very square. And, you know, all good boxes, bases, whatever, start with really square lumber. So I'm going to take a pigtail mark on here, which means that this is my flat edge. Little pigtail mark on there. And then I do a little triangle or a little arrowhead towards that pigtail on this side. And that lets me know that this has been squared to this edge. So it's pointing to this edge. This has the pigtail. So anytime I'm referencing looking at this wood, I can say, oh, there's my pigtail. I know this is the flattened side. And this is my reference squared up edge to that side right there. So I always do that when I'm running the boards through so that I know which ones have been done and where those sides are, those kind of reference marks are. All right, I'm going to take this one through and run it. And by the way, just to kind of show you, look at the wood grain on this. And this is, you can kind of see once you get rid of that, the planer marks, or not the planer, but the saw marks, how pretty this walnut is. And you put some oil on here or whatever, and this stuff will be just gorgeous. It's got some really nice grain down here at the end too. It's really pretty. But anyway, that's why I love the walnut stuff, because even though it's like this, you can't really tell because it's got saw marks and stuff. But once you start passing it through one of the cleaning blades, like the jointer or the planer, it really starts to come to life. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to look this board down, find out if it's curving in one direction or another, because I want that curve, I want the high point of that curve to be up and the low points to be down on the edges. And I've got a little bit of a curve going this way, so I'm going to run this one down. And looking at the grain, it's kind of all over the place again, but I'm going to go this way and grab my push blocks. These are bench dog tools. You can get these on Amazon. They're pretty good because they got a neoprene bottom on this side, and then nice grippy handles that are actually they're kind of angled, so you can see they're not straight up and down. They're angled back, which gives you a lot of leverage when you're standing on the side of a machine. So that's why I like these. If they're not feeling really grippy, you know, spit on them. It is what it is. It does make it work better. All right, let's clean this one off, shall we? We'll get right in. Okay, so that is pretty good along the length here. It's very flat. Um, just a word about when you're feeding stuff through a jointer, or at least when I'm feeding it through. If I've got a little bit of a cupping thing, you don't want to press down in the middle as it's passing over, because it's kind of like a spring. You'll get it to push down and it'll clean that wood off. But then when you get it out the other end, it's going to come back up again. And so your board is still going to have that cup in there. So generally I like to go past the blade and put all my pressure and just drag the wood across there. Don't push down so much as I'm pulling it across. And that should give you a nice flat board by the time you're done, because you don't want any cupping on there. And the longer the board, the harder that is to control. But anyway, let's go ahead and get an edge here. Let me find an edge that can be cleaned up here. And I'm going to go ahead and do this edge. So I'm going to mark this one with my pigtail. There's my little pigtail on there. And then I'm going to reference this edge right here. Well, maybe I'm thinking, well, this one. Yeah, I'm going to do this one because it should be good. So I'm going to draw my lines on here, because that's why I draw the lines, because you saw how much I had to do on that last one. You think it's flat and square until you start doing that, and then you're like, oh, it's not. So let me see how square and flat this one is. We're going to run this one through. I don't need the push pads to do this part. All right, that looks good. So the important part to remember when you're running that edge is you really want to keep this face flat against this surface right here, because that is giving you, that's your flat reference surface, right? So you want it to be 90 degrees square right here, which I check it with my square. I probably should do that before I start, but it's perfect. And you want it to be nice and square. And so you want to really make sure that you're keeping this face really flush against this fence, because that's your reference and that's where everything else kind of comes together from. The jointer really is the first true the first true reference face that you're making. Now, where's my pigtail? I know I put a pigtail on. There it is. It's the only problem with walnut is it's hard to see your marks here. So the jointer is really the first step in getting these things really truly dimensioned. If you don't have a jointer, I mean, it's not the end of the world. There are other ways to do it, but I mean, you could do it by hand, but good Lord, why would you want to? It would take forever. So if you were going to do this by hand, you would need something like this. This is a jointing plane, right? It's got a super long sole on it. And that long sole is to provide a reference on that board. You can see how that would provide a reference. So as you're running this thing along the wood, it's referencing against this sole and getting everything flattened out. So that would be your first step, is running something like a jointer plane. The shorter the plane sole, the less accurate your edge becomes. If you don't have a planer or a jointer or both, my advice would be to, shit, did I have that undone? My advice would be to see if the local hardwood place near you will dimension lumber for you. It's costlier, but in the end, it'll save you time, effort, and frustration with not having really well dimensioned wood. So if you don't have the facility to do this, it's really the easiest way to go. I just like to run the vacuum in there, clean out that dust chute. My dust chute doesn't clear very well, so I do like to clean out the dust chute whenever I can, just to kind of keep things moving through. All right, we've got another one here. Let's get on to this one. This is really the whole, milling process. I mean, we're not even going to get through it all today. But in essence, you start with cutting your wood down to the rough sizes that you need. So for me, it was getting it down to those almost 3-inch wide strips. And then it's about getting one flat edge on the bottom as a reference on the jointer, and then getting a square edge on the side to give you a true 90-degree angle. This one's going to run downhill like this. And then from there, we could do one of two things. We could take it over and we could get the other side squared up and parallel to the referenced short side by running it through the table saw, or we could do it in a planer and then cut this. So we can go one of two ways after that. So I'm going to go probably with the planer next, but that will not be today. I've still got to get all this stuff jointed. So that will probably be sometime on Wednesday. Maybe Wednesday show is what we'll do. But anyway, let's get back to this because, I got a lot to do. Quit distracting me already. Jeez. Such distractions. So just so you can see, we're getting nice clean cut area now in the front, but we've got still all this area right here is rough. And then we start picking up more surface area back here and then in the very back, which shows you that this isn't even touching the blade right through the middle, which is why I said it kind of bows this way, which is why we want to run it through that way. If you're only going to have one milling tool, which would be a jointer or a planer, I would opt for the planer. It's going to give you more utility. You can always make a sled for basically get a piece of MDF or something and hot glue your wood down. Make sure you put wedges and stuff so it's really stable. You run it through the planer. That gives you a nice flat reference edge. Then you take it off the sled, flip it over, and then flatten it down. So that's probably much more useful, because then you can always use your saw to square edges to that surface. So probably a planer would be more useful than a jointer, but a jointer is a really nice option to have. I'm just looking at these edges to see which one I want to square up here. I'm not sure. Let me look at the grain direction. All right, we're going to go. Okay, I'm going to square this edge. But yeah, I'd say if I had to vote for just having one of the two, it would probably be the planer, just because you can use some jigs and tools to get results with it that you can't do with the jointer. The jointer, you're not going to get a parallel flat face. You just can't do it. Yeah, jointers are for making a flat surface, but they are not for making things parallel flat. That requires a planer. And the planer uses your jointed face as a reference, and then just basically makes the planed face parallel to the jointed face. But you can do it, like I said, you can do it with a, this is an interesting piece of wood. You can do it with a planer with a sled. And there's YouTube videos and stuff on how to make planer sleds. And they're much more useful, I think, in that way than just having a jointer. If I had to have one, it would be a planer, not a jointer. But since I have two, Yes. Yeah. All right, that took a really long time. Um, and that happens sometimes because, this is cut by a sawmill. And sometimes if their blade cuts a little deeper on just one little edge, um, it doesn't look like much, but I take really fine passes and it took a long time to get that one edge flattened down. So I had to bring the entire board down to that low spot. And that takes some time, but you can see this is really cool looking wood. These are, just areas in the wood that are different colors. The thing is, look how much this stuff oxidizes. Look at the yellowing here. Look how much lighter it is over here. So you can see it's much whiter on these areas where the wood has now been milled up. But anyway, yeah, that took a long time. I'm going to go ahead and do one edge on this. And then what time is it? 1:20. And then we'll kind of call it for a day here. I think this is enough of those of you who maybe are not big fans of milling wood. It's much more pleasurable just to do it yourself because I don't know. It's kind of, for me, it's kind of like therapeutic. It's just like you just kind of keep doing it and getting them flat. And all right, let me get this. Close enough. Close enough. There's just a hint of the ink there, but I think that's close enough for what we need. So I'm going to draw my pigtail on here. And then draw my little triangle down here, or my little arrowhead pointing to that pigtail. And then we know that this one has been done. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more to do. So there's quite a bit. It's getting warm here in the shop, I will tell you. It is 82 right now in the shop, which means I need to at least kick on a fan to blow at me here while I'm doing this stuff, because whew, it gets warm. Oh, of course, wearing those things doesn't help any, but yeah, a good dusty day here in the shop. Well, we got four boards jointed. We'll, cut to their approximate width, and then jointed a flat face and a square side. And that really is the way that this process works. You flatten one whole side of the board on the jointer, at least I do. And then I do one square edge. And then from there, I will wheel out my planer and start getting these things down to thickness. I also, some of these boards are really thick, being these white oak boards or red oak boards, super thick. When you consider that, I don't have a piece of 3/4 inch here for reference. There we go. So consider that this is the thickness we're going for, and this is where we would be starting. You can see that it's, there's a big difference there. There's a lot of wood that needs to come off of this thing in order to make it usable for the bases. So a lot of work to do, but I do enjoy milling. It's not for everybody. I would highly advise that most places that are lumber hardwood sellers, dealers, have the ability to mill wood for you. And sometimes they'll already have the boards milled up. You can buy them that way, or you can ask that they would do. You could have them do two sides. If maybe you only have a planer, maybe you just want one flat side and an edge or something, or so they can surface one side, they can surface 3 sides, they can surface all 4 sides, and there's a cost involved for that. But they also have much heavier duty industrial machines, more than likely, that takes them almost no time to do that work for you. If you picked out your boards, you could take them to them and then probably pick them up like in a couple of hours or the next day, depending on how busy they are or whatever. Usually, maybe within the next day or so, you could go pick your boards up and they would be milled and ready for you to start working on your project. You wouldn't have to worry about this. The downside of your big box store is that you don't have the availability of different species of wood. You're really limited in basically pine, poplar, and maybe some oak, maybe some white oak or red oak, but it's not going to be really what you're looking for, I think. They're very generic-y pieces of wood. Your widths are going to be kind of standardized. They sell by linear. So they sell by the linear foot, and their prices are stupid expensive. Even if you go and get this stuff milled up at a hardwood seller, it'll probably cost you half of what they would charge at a big box store. I guarantee it. If you mill it yourself, you're going to pay a lot less, which is why I do it. My savings comes from the sweat equity I put into milling my own wood. It gives me control over the dimensionality. I can control exactly how wide that board is, how thick that board is, and that gives me a lot of flexibility in what I do. And I can use one board for different projects that need different thicknesses of wood because I have the ability to do those things. So that's where milling your own wood kind of comes in handy. So it's a price thing and it's a control thing. But if you don't have that ability to mill your wood, but you still want to use, better than 2x4s for your projects, or poplar or something like that, then you're going to have to go find a source for hardwood. There are some online sources. If you've got if you got a Rockler or a woodcraft store near you, they have dimensional lumber that is more exotic species like walnut and other types of wood. And they will have it already surfaced for you. You can go in there. It's more expensive than buying unprocessed wood or unfinished wood, but it's not too bad. Your more expensive process would be to get that wood from a place like Woodworker's Source, which is a wood mill, but they sell online, and they will surface. They'll do S4S, surface 4 sides, and you're paying a premium for that process. But you get dimensional lumber delivered to your door. So there is that way. You do need to know how to configure or how to figure out board feet. That's the only thing I don't like about using the wood store, is that if you aren't familiar with board feet and how to calculate that, it can get confusing. If you're doing that. So Woodworker's Source, not the easiest place. Woodworkers, I'm gonna look it up real quick. Workers Source. I'm just looking it up real quick. So Woodworker's Source, they do carry a lot of different types of species of wood though. So you can get domestic lumber, exotic lumber. They got a ton of stuff. They have ready to go packs of wood. I have ordered some stuff from them because sometimes you just can't find what you want. So I have ordered some big wood blanks from them and stuff. They have turning stock. They have different widths available and stuff. So anyway, go look at their site. It's Woodworker's Source. Woodworker's Source. Just Google it, you'll find it. And you can find an online place to get S4S lumber. You will pay a premium because then on top of the finishing, you're paying for shipping. So not the cheapest way, but if you want, you know, some, I don't know, leopard wood, or if you want, you know, just something more exotic like Purple Heart or Padauk or zebra wood or mahogany or any sort of exotic, you're gonna have a tough time maybe sourcing those locally. You can go to Woodworker's Source and get them. So it's just an option for you. And if you're selling it, well, you just add that onto the price, right? Because it is what it is. Anyway, that's what I wanted to leave that. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there for you all because milling is not for everybody. It takes the tools and the time. There are woodworkers who do not do any milling, who never mill. They don't own a jointer, and they're like, well, I don't need a jointer. And it's like, you can get by without one. Absolutely. A planer, not so much. You're definitely, if you're going to add a tool to your shop, table saw, planer, crosscut saw, bandsaw, those are the big four, I think, for anybody who's going to do anything. And you can get by with those. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it today. It's like 1:30 almost, and I am hot and I'm getting hungry because I haven't eaten yet today. I've had my coffee, but that's about it. And I still have, as you can see, a bunch of work to do. When we come back on Wednesday, or when you come back, hopefully on Wednesday, I'll still be here. I'm not coming back. I'll still be here. But anyway, on Wednesday, we will have all this stuff hopefully jointed, and we will be ready to pull that planer out and start sucking boards through the planer. Tomorrow I'm going to try to finish up the rest of these bases that need finishing, and then they're just going to set to the side until I come up with a time to actually spray them. But as far as this stuff goes, we're just going to push forward now and start working on these smaller bases. So yeah, kind of square one. Let's get our boards dimensioned, and we'll continue that Wednesday. All right. You all have a great day. I hope you're not boiling in super hot heat like I am. If you are, stay cool. Get in a fan. Stay hydrated. Take care of yourself. Hopefully you've had your shots. You know, wear your mask if you haven't. And take care of yourself. Take care of others. And come back on Wednesday. Hey, do me a favor if you can. Hit the like, subscribe, follow, whatever's appropriate for the platform you're on. All the socials are down here in the bottom. They're in the description. They're in the About page on Twitch. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself. I will see you back here on Wednesday.